Yeah, blessings on blessings, yeah. Blessings on blessings.
While studying, I came across something intriguing. When y'all said that something would die, for whatever reason, it died sooner rather than later. When he commanded that whoever touches the Ark of the Covenant and stated that they would die, those who did touch it, they died. When he said that if any man would work on the Sabbath shall die, when that man was caught collecting them sticks and laboring on the Sabbath, he was sentenced to death. But it's been one thing that always intrigued me, that always wondered about. And that is when Abba told Adam and Eve. He says, if you ate from this tree of knowledge and good and evil, he said that you shall surely die, right? But they, as we all know, Adam and Eve did not. Why didn't they die immediately? Did Yah's word fall void? Now, me personally, I don't believe so. Because Yah has yet to let anyone down, let alone myself. So this led me on a track to study death so that I can gain an understanding that I soon found I was lacking. Today, I will share with you my new improved understanding of death, and we will cover death, its domain, whether or not Adam's sin actually brought death into the world, or was it already here? And how death is directly linked with the mark of man, or possibly the mark of the beast. So certain things and certain aspects I'm not going to go into detail about because I'm expecting some of you to already know already. But I'm going to hit some major parts. All right. Um, in advance, I pray that this message bless you and that we can all grow in understanding. So first off, to get things started, let's look at the Hebraic definition of death. H4194. Hallelujah. And that word, as you see there, is mavet, mavet, right? The concrete meaning of death is man. The abstract is a length of time that comes to an end, right? So the picture graph of the mem is a picture of water representing chaos. And the tau is a picture of two crossed sticks representing a mark or sign. Combine these mean the chaos mark, the length of time that something exists and in. So right here we see that death it's almost like a behold situation, right? It's like behold this mark, behold this sign as a mark of the end. So death is like being in a state of decay or the idea of aging destined to expire. So even killers in the world can't beat death. Even when Yoshiyahu would say, the nation of killing cannot top death itself because it will happen no matter what. Death is its own supreme power that no one on earth or from earth can beat on their own. And you see death in all things. Everything has an expiration date. There, if you look at food, you know, seed of good fruit is planted, and then over the course of time, it expires and it dies. Mashiach's ministry, the beginning at his birth, his heyday through the gospel of his journey, and that time that it was finally came for him for his time to actually come, that chaos mark, right? When his death had to come. So death death is a known entity, right? Paul writes in Romans 7:18 through 20, he says, "For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing." Oh, my apologies. Romans 7:18 through 20. I apologize, Aki. I'm getting excited. He says, For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. For the good that I would do not, but the evil which I would not, that is what I do. Now, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but it's sin that dwelleth in me. Jumping down to 22 through 24. For I delight in the law of Elohim after the inward man, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? So we can see there is something in our flesh trying to keep us bound and held captive, destined for death. Now, when you are a slave, you are taken and led somewhere to a place where your master dwells. You see, while you're bound and shackled. We know that sin and evil, which is within our mortal flesh, if we continue to do these things that we which are knowledgeable, because Paul is different. Paul has the ability to acknowledge that it's something in him warring against the seed of life, the seed of Yah, and the instructions that is in him to war. He has the ability to war against and identify that urge is evil and wicked. You see, it's something that Paul had. Paul had knowledge of good and evil. But imagine a person that does not have this knowledge, that cannot identify sin and whether or not their actions, even though it may be pleasing to their flesh, may actually be evil. They may think that it's a lot of times that people may think that pleasing their desires give them a sense of relief or as a stress reliever. But little do they know that these actions that you are heading yourself over to is not pleasure, but it's going to send you to ultimate pain and destruction. So now that we know that these actions, these sinful things that are within our flesh leads us somewhere, well, let's talk about this place where where death resides, right? Let's jump to Genesis. Let's do Genesis 1, 2. Keith, you already knew where I was going. You know where I live. You know my address. So in Genesis 1, 2, we see here it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So darkness in the creation in this particular time was over the face of the deep and over the waters, right? So so after that, in Genesis 1, 3 and 4, it says, Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And Elohim saw that the light, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. Now we know what the Hebrew word for light is. If you know what the Hebrew word for light is, put it or. Hallelujah. But let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at click on that darkness for me, Aki. Click on that darkness. This is Keith, one of Keith's favorite words. He loved, and I say it's his favorite word because he loves saying it. Hoshek, right? And Hoshek, which is H2822, represents darkness. And continuing in the Strongs, it says that this darkness figuratively represents misery, destruction, death, ignorance, sorrow, and wickedness. All right. So this domain of death, which is linked to sin, is located, its domain is in darkness. All right. Its domain is in darkness, where wicked things happen and where destruction is. But Abba said that the light was good, right? So if light is good, could that possibly mean that what could darkness be? What is it? What is what if light is good and we're doing a compare and contrast? Can y'all put in the chat what you think that darkness is? There you go. Bad, evil, right? Kiefer. That's right. Y'all already ahead of the game. Rah, rah. Kiefer, put in H7451. Because I just want to make sure that we understand that in this domain of darkness, what is in there, right? What is this? What does it actually mean to be bad, right? To be bad, Ra or Ra'ah, the feminine version, bad is directly linked with evil. So bad and evil is synonymous, right? And it says that in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, it says that bad is something that is what? Dysfunctional, something that is wrong, evil, and wicked. So now we know that bad, evil, and wickedness all comes together in the place which is darkness, which is its domain. And guess what is also there in darkness? Sin and death. All right. But maybe I'm tripping. Keep it, maybe, dysfunctional maybe is a stretch. Keep it, look at H2896. Let's see what told means. Let's see what told means, right? For those of you, y'all probably already know this. Tov means good. But in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, you know, it's an action that goes along. For all of our engineers and computer science, all those people that have a little Ovid in them, those builders and whatnot, it's something good means that it's something that functions properly. So bad, ra, means that something is dysfunctional or doesn't function properly, right? So as we was talking about in that Matthew 18, he says, is there's anything that offends you in this offense, right? Whether it be your eyes, your legs, your arm or limb, a person, that word also for offense means something that causes you to snare you or causes you to stumble. And he says, any of these things, you need to cut it off. If it's anything that may lead you or cause you to snare or to fall off track or to be dysfunctional, you need to cut it off. Because if you don't cut it off, you might be like one of those people that's running from Jason. You know what goes on in those little horror movies? Someone always trip and fall. What happens? You already know what's going to happen. They're done. Death is right there. It's classic, right? So, but even Yahusha says that those individuals, those that walk in darkness, they're going to what? They're going to stumble and they're going to fall, right? But he says that those who have the light, he says, those that walk in the day, they don't stumble. Why? Because they have the light in them. People stumble in darkness. They have no light to light their way. Let's continue with the wickedness, with this wickedness, because we gotta make this link, right? Because we gotta understand, like, how do we get on this course? How do we get into this spectrum or this course of death, right? Let's compare wicked actions or evil actions and see where these things led people. Let's jump to Kiefer, jump to Genesis 13:13. All right. Now, this is Sodom. It says, the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners, right? Before Yah exceedingly, right? Now, what happened? Put in the chat what happened to the people of Sodom, because we know that the people of Sodom were wicked, which means that they were evil. What happened to the people that was in, what happened to the people that resided in Sodom? Death. That's right. They died. Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, right? Even the individual, because it says that Lot was righteous, right? Lot dwelled close to Sodom and Gomorrah. And because he was close to Sodom and Gomorrah, that means that he was around people that was destined for destruction. And he had to get pulled out of there. You see? So that means that you being in this place, in this state, he was a light that was in the midst of darkness. He was out of place. You see? Let's continue. Let's jump to Genesis 39:9. So we see that wickedness was directly linked to destruction, right? So now this is Yosef over here at Potiphar's house, and this is that there is none greater in this house. Let's talk about Yosef, right? Greater than I. Neither hath he kept back anything from me, but thee, because thou art his wife. how then can I do this great, wicked evil and sin against Elohim? So we understand that somebody's wife was after Yosef and trying to appeal to the desires of his member. But you see, Yosef was one with Yah. His desire was towards pleasing Yah. And he was able to identify the pressure, because as I said, as we mentioned in Romans, that Paul is wrestling with a desire that is inside, that's in him. This desire is outside of Yosef, but it's in a domain, it's still in a domain where he is still a servant, you see? So what did he have to do? He chose to run away. He chose to run away. Didn't care what, of course his name was tarnished and he was blamed and they try to say that he did this, that, and the third, but in actuality, we know what the story is, he didn't. But so that he would not give in to the sin, he distanced himself from it. He ran away. Now, Exodus, as Kiefer, jump to Exodus 9:27. And it says here, 9:27. It said, and Pharaoh sent and called for Moshe and Aharon. And he said unto them, I have sinned this time. Yah is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. So we know that. So right now, Pharaoh is tired of that hell and these plagues being dumped on him. And because of his actions and his lack of obedience, he acknowledges the fact that, yes, he sinned. And that Yah is righteous, and that because of his actions, even his people that follow him are wicked, are evil. Him and his people are wicked. And because of his wickedness, we know what ultimately happened to Mitzrayim because of his continued disobedience after the showing of Abba's constant power. The ultimate thing happened to Mitzrayim. And what happened? What happened? It was just like Sodom and Gomorrah. Who put it in the chat? What happened? What happened to Egypt? What happened to the firstborns? What happened to the firstborns? What happened to the firstborns in Egypt? The father said, "Look, let my people go. Stop playing. Put respect on my name, or death." And which is crazy because the destruction came at what time? During what time did the destruction came? See, they was inside keeping the Passover. They had the blood on their doorposts. But throughout the night, at night, in the darkness, death resided. I just believe that this is just simple symbolism. So the point that I wanted to make here is that because we already know the domain of light, I wanted to show you the domain of death. The domain of death is in darkness. And what happens in figurative darkness is wickedness. Now, if we understand, because we studied Torah, that Yahusha is the light, it's the truth, the way, and the life, right? And he is the light that lighteth all mankind, right? Now, if he is the truth, the way, and the life, and he is the light, that means that all those who walk in his stead will do what? If you compare wickedness, the reward of righteousness, obedience is what? If you walk in the light, the reward of obedience and righteousness, what is the reward of obedience and righteousness? Even if you die, eternal life, eternal life, right? But what is the reward? Because even us righteous folk, we don't dwell in the domain of darkness. We are children of the light. We are light bearers. We light up everything around us. But those people, because people would love to tell you and like for you to think that the world is not black and white. They try so hard. They try so hard to try to tell you that the world is not black and white. But I promise you it is. I promise you it is. I promise you it is. That's why the Father says, I would much rather you be what? Hot or cold. He can't stand it when you're lukewarm. That water, he gonna spit it out. He gonna spit it out. There is no gray area. As you continue to walk on a path of wickedness and evil, disobedience, disregard, because I wanted to point out the domain and the realm of death, right? Now, there's a direct link with death and man. In Genesis 4:1, Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a what? A man from Yah, right? The Hebrew word for man that we know very well is ish, right? The action means sick. The concrete meaning is man from the ancient Hebrew lexicon. Now, it says, but why does it say sick? It says sick in the sense of what? Mortality. If you remember that when we looked at death itself, death is directly linked to what? Man, mortality. Death, maveth, and ish both are directly linked to one another. Genesis 3:22. And all things on the earth was already linked, has a direct link with death. And even man has a direct link with death from the Hebrew mindset. The general idea of man was that man was created and was going to live forever. But because of sin, death came into the world. Because of that, man was on a course. He lost his immortality in that he was now dying in a dying state. But I don't believe that. I believe that death was already in the world because darkness already existed. And we understand that inside darkness resides death, which is also the domain of Hasatan. Hasatan is like Yah in the domain of death, even though he's a servant of Yah, but he's the master of that domain. Death is the opposite of Yahusha. Death is the what they will call the master or the king of darkness. So the reason why I believe that darkness already existed is that this verse here, it says Genesis 3:22, it says, and Yah said, behold, the man has become as one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. If man was already on course to live forever, then why does it say here that if he eats from the tree of the knowledge, if he eats from the tree of life, that he would live forever? You see? I believe that in this sense that man and death and mortality was always the case. Fruit must fall from a tree and it has to expire like all things. All things must go through this never-ending cycle of life and death. But Abba controls through obedience will bless you to be able to eat from the tree of life. So my opinion, this is my opinion, is that if Adam would have continued to obey Abiyah and remained in his presence, he would have been able to continue to eat from the tree of life and live. Because if you look at, jump to Genesis 2:15, it says, and Yah, our Elohim, took the man and put him in the garden, right? To dress it and to keep it. That's a whole nother lesson. And Yah, our Elohim, commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou must freely eat. What tree did he say that man could not eat from? In verse 17? What tree did he say that man could not eat from? He says, but of the tree of the knowledge and good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. It's the tree of knowledge and good and evil. Now, go back to 3:22, Kiefer. And it says that, what was the other tree in the midst of the garden? He says, now the Father says that Adam cannot eat from the tree of life, right? But both of these trees was in the midst of the garden. The point that I'm making is that Adam could have ate from that tree of life. Maybe, possibly, eating from the tree of life, because in the state of man, in his members, if they cannot understand the reason why man died. Doctors, biologists, they cannot understand why, as we grow, what is the sign or what it is that causes our body to decay and die. Why? What is the thing that causes our cells to stop regenerating? Why healthy cells stop regenerating? What is it? What is the cause? Man has not been able to figure that out yet. Possibly, if you, if you, my opinion or my thought, maybe Adam was already eating from the tree of life. Maybe the tree of life, if you continue to eat from it, it continue to give you something, a special sustenance that continues to prolong your days, right? Maybe just being in the presence of Yah prolong your days. Remember, Moshe was in the presence of Yah for 40 days and 40 nights, right? They was just in the presence. He was just in the presence, and he didn't eat no water or ate any bread, right? 40 days and 40 nights. He was in the presence of Yah, and Matter of fact, while they was wandering in the wilderness, Yisrael ate manna, right? The food of Yah. What did Caleb say? Caleb said, man, I came into this 40 years. Caleb's 80 years old. Caleb was like, hey man, I feel like I was 40. I feel like I was still back in my fighting age. And he was up there, he said, man, as soon as they went into the land, I'm gonna go up there and fight them giants, the Raphaim and them. You see, the sustenance that Abba was given them in the wilderness, other than now, mind you, it was still those that was wandering in the wilderness that died. So that means that the power of life and death is in whose hands? Who's the power of life and death is in whose hands? Because all of them was eating manna. He says even their clothes did not decay and die, right? It's in Yah's hands. So while now the issue that we have with Adam is that now Adam was removed from the presence of Yah. He was taken out of the Garden of Eden and sent eastward, right? When they said that the cherubim had their flaming swords on the eastward of the garden to protect the way of the tree of life, right? Now, in this situation, I believe that I wasn't supposed to bring it out yet, that Adam was taken and placed in the realm in which darkness can have hold of him. He was no longer in the protection in the house, in the bed. Even worser, let's jump to, you see, Abba's love is conditional. It's things that we must do to, it's things that we must do to receive his protection. People like to say that Abba's love is unconditional. I beg to differ. Because it's things that we must do in order to receive his protection and his blessings. He removed Adam and Eve from salvation because he lost favor from Yah. You see, Adam really never had to work for the favor of Yah. But since he was removed, now him and all of us must work to earn that favor from here on out. Now, to continue on the point that I was making about darkness and its existence. See, we understand that in Revelations that darkness and Sheol will be cast where? Let's take a look at Revelations 20:12 through 13. So here it says, I saw the dead and the small and the great stand before Yah, and the books were open. And another book was open, which is the book of life. Oh, wow. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and Sheol delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged every man according to their works. All right. Now, verses 14 and 15 says, and death and Sheol, or hell, were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life, was cast into the lake of fire. It's one thing that I did not notice in Genesis chapter 3, nor chapter 4, is the creation of death. The creation, I did not see when Adam sinned, then it said that this is when death was created. But here I see where death is being destroyed. I have not, I'm going to say it again, I did not see the creation of death when it right after Adam sinned, which usually leads us to believe, because we was going on with this belief that death came into the world because Adam sinned. But I did not see that written in scripture to say that because Adam sinned, death was born. This is why it leads me to believe that death actually already existed. You see, because there was a division made between light and darkness. But what happens soon after death? See, what happens is not only was, what else was cast into the lake of fire after the 1,000-year reign? What else? Who is the prime player that was cast into the lake of fire? Our number one adversary. Put it in the chat. Who's our number one adversary? The ruler or the king of darkness. Hasatan. So we know here in Revelation that Hasatan, death, and Sheol was cast into the lake of fire. All those that reigned into that domain was cast into the lake of fire and destroyed, right? What happens after that, though? It's something that happens. So now that that land is clear, because when you go to war, so that means that that land, those people, that culture is all destroyed. But guess what happens to that land also? That land is what? Let's do Revelations 21:1, right? Because it said in the beginning that darkness covered what? The abyss, right? Well, when this new heaven and the new earth comes, well, the first heaven and the first earth was passed away, there was no more seas. Because we know that that mem is the representation, that water, that mighty amount of water is a representation of chaos. So that chaos is being removed. That abyss. And Kiefer, jump to 22:5-6, just so I can close this point up. Keith, I know you're taking notes. My apologies, man. I'm not giving you enough time to take some notes, man. I apologize. Revelation 22:5-6 says, and there shall be no night there. And they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for Yah, our Elohim, giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. And he said unto me, these sayings are faithful and true. And Yah, our Elohim, of the Kodesh prophets, sent him an angel to show unto his servants the things which must shortly be done. So after, because don't forget that there was a domain, there was a division. There was a division between light and darkness before there was a sun and the moon. There was a division. Abba Yah allowed there to be a division, a place for light and a place for darkness. When it's all said and done, and he has no more use for Hasatan, no more use for Sheol hell, and no more use for death, there's no more use for darkness. And there's only light. There's only light. So that means that so now I covered of the domain or the kingdom of death, where it resides. I covered the actions that reside there. I covered the points of whether or not man's man's disobedience brought death into the world, or whether or not it already existed. So now that when we was able to compare light and dark actions with light and dark with light, dark, wicked, evil actions and the reward of that sin which led to death, and light, righteousness, and obedience and the reward of everlasting life. Now let's talk about man. In this death, right? In that H4194, we know that death, the action is to die, and the concrete meaning is man, and the abstract is mortality. Kiefer, put in H6 in H6, right? Because to destroy, death and destruction is all inside the realm of darkness, right? In this realm. And the same as destruction is also to perish or to be alone, right? So in the Strongs, it says to perish or to destroy, or to someone that loses oneself. And what happens? They end up wandering. You see, we talked about that good shepherd in Matthew 18, right? The good shepherd that goes, that the father says that he wished to lose none of his sheep, right? And we talked about how we should, break the bonds and the binds and forgive our brothers, you see, because he wishes not to lose any of his children. And we talked about how Yahusha desired to find and catch all those who are lost. How does one become lost? One becomes lost by going astray. What happens? How does a kid that's with their parents end up being lost? Is it because the parent just wandered off? Or did the child wander off? Put in the chat. Is it the parent that wandered off? Or is it majority of the time? I ain't gonna say that some parents don't be trying to leave their kids. Maybe their kids too bad. It's like, we just gonna go to King's Dominion and I'm just gonna walk away. Maybe their kids that bad. But majority of the time, a lot of the times, who is the ones that get captivated by the things that are around them? It's the child. It's the kid. Praise. That's why Abba says that, Abba can't stand sin, but what? He loves it when a sinner does what? Repents and returns back to him. See, that sinner was wandering in the darkness. He was wandering on a course of destruction. But he turned away and he broke the bounds. He wrestled with death. And he found his way back into the light. You see? So that idea of to perish or to be alone. Because when we're on this journey, a lot of these people that wander, they don't seek help. They feel like they're alone. They feel like they can't talk to nobody sometimes. A lot of times these individuals be selfish. They don't trust anyone at all. So continuing with the ancient Hebrew lexicon breakdown of abad, the Hebrew word abad, or to perish or to be alone. The action is to perish. The concrete meaning is to be lost. And what happens to something that's lost and not found? Well, it just happens to be destroyed, destruction. To be separated from the whole, to be separated from life, to be separated from functionality. That's in the ancient Hebrew. Okay, you just scroll down a little bit. You see, did you see? Yeah, from the whole and to be separated from something else. You see? Now, I want to compare this to, let's take a look at Kiefer. Let's it's a similar word that goes with that, and that's H5110. Nude or node, waver, right? Wander, flee, and disappear. Kiefer, jump to Genesis 4:12. Abba just came and says because he killed Abel, right? There's two wanderers, distinct sinful wanderers. And a friend of mine reminded me of a group of wanderers, right? Says, when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. He continued by saying, a fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. All right? A fugitive and a vagabond. Click on vagabond. Oh, that's our word right there, right? A vagabond is a wanderer. Who was that wanderer, right? In that book of Job, that when Abba asked him where he was, he said he was going to and fro throughout the land. Oh, Hasatan. You see, Hasatan was a wanderer. He was outside, kicked out of the presence and the light of Yah. He was, hold up, he was bound, right? He was bound for 1,000 and bound in 1,000 years in the pit, right? That pit is in darkness. So the king of darkness was bound also in darkness. Destined for what? To perish. Destined for death. Of those in the wilderness, so we have those, so even those that, because when our ancestors also disobeyed in the wilderness, the Father said, what? You shall wander 40 years. Why? For those who cross that death age, for them to die off because of what? Their disobedience, their sin. Do y'all see this wandering? Do y'all see this connection? Well, let's link this with Cain. Cain in verse 13 says that, and Cain said unto Yah, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out of this land, from the face of the earth, and from thy face. So now, and from thy face shall I be hidden, and shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. Everyone. So now that Cain is separated from the presence of Yah, he's outside, he's removed from the face of Yah, he's in fear and worried about what? He's worried about the master of what? The master of darkness, the master, because he's placed in the outer darkness, outside of the presence of Yah, further than Adam. You see, he was placed in the realm where death can get him. For sure. He's worried about death. And I mean, maybe he had brothers and sisters and stuff at that time, just say that, that Adam has sons and daughters, but the first immediate thing that he's worried about is death, being a wanderer. But look at what Abba Father said to him in Genesis 4:15. He says, and Yah said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yah did what? He placed a mark upon Cain, lest any man find him and should kill him. You see, Cain, the wanderer, was given a mark. Abba says that if you live by the sword, you shall what? Die by the sword. You see, I would like to think that that is a direct link to Cain, because he is the first murderer. He started off living by the sword. So now he's in fear of the same repercussion coming to him. That same cycle, because there's nothing new under the sun. So Abba placed a mark on him, right? But even now, Kepha, it's something about that. But see, Abba says that if anybody should slay Cain, their repercussion continuing, right? It says, in Cain, what it says, lest anyone find him shall kill him. And it says, and Cain went out from the presence of Yah and dwelt in the land of Nod, right? So it says that, oh yeah, in 15, I apologize. Vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold on that person. That's why when you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's why you must forgive your neighbor. For those of you who receive forgiveness. But if you are not in that forgiven state and you continue to seek it out, Abba said what? And what's that, Romans 12:19? What did Paul say, Kepha? Because Abba said he's going to take vengeance. He says, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says Yah. You see, vengeance is Yah's. Even though it's directly linked with Cain, but Cain's seed and his offspring is the seed of disobedience. It's already in their blood. You see, now we got people in this world that cares nothing. They have that mark. And they care nothing about killing people. It's just a rite of passage. We got to do it. There's no thinking of the repercussions of it. They just got to do it. It's terrible, but that's the world. That's the world that we live in. Am I saying that everybody have that mark of Cain? No, it says that Cain was given that mark. But I think that was a beginning of a cycle, you see. Kiefer, put in there H 22:6. And that Hebrew word for mark is oath. It's oath. And it means a mark, a sign or token. All right. And that's all I really wanted to talk about when it comes to Cain, right? So we know now throughout this lesson that that death is the link is directly linked with man. Ish, well, with man's mortality. Ish is directly linked with man's mortality, right? All these things are linked. Man and even Cain, who wandered, was given a mark, right? And he was placed in a realm in which he was fearful of death. Kifa, go to Revelations 13:16 through 18. Because I think there was something that also already existed in this that was put in place. And maybe it started after Cain. You see, in Revelation 16, right? He says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bound, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And that man might buy or sell, and save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. 18 says, here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of what? It is the number of what? It is the number of man. And his number is 603 score six, but we're not worried about 3 score six. Right here is telling you right now, and I hope this becomes more profound for you after I really pray that this really hits you harder than it ever hit you before, that this mark that you're receiving is the mark. The mark of man is the mark of death. It's the mark of mortality. It's the chaos mark. It's like that movie that you watch and you see these people, maybe it's Speed or something, and you see the train, or no, Back to the Future. There we go. You see Back to the Future, or maybe some Mission Impossible or something. And Marty McFly gotta punch the buttons and hit everything right. You know that one that they was in the desert back in the Western time, and they had to get on the time machine one last time, and they only had one last stretch. They had just enough space, but that ramp led straight to a cliff. That cliff is the chaos mark. Because if they don't do what they need to do right, if they don't have the favor of Yah with them, if they don't push all the right buttons in that car, if Noah did not put every piece of wood in the place that he was supposed to place it, in the time that he was supposed to place it, maybe if he didn't put the animals in the right place that they were supposed to sit, maybe the ark wouldn't have floated. when that destruction came and that flood came, and maybe that Back to the Future car didn't make it back to the future, but made it and landed into the end. And everybody that was on that road, you see, all those that was blind moving throughout the darkness. You know what they say, the blind lead the blind, they all fall in the ditch, right? All those people that have that mark, that lived in darkness and worshiped that beast. And that beast was given the power by who? That dragon. And that dragon came from where? That dragon came from the water, right? And then that water was darkness. You see, all those things was destined for death. So if you run into a person that just think that, you know what, my way is cool, you know, I'm a good person, everything is straight. You see, that mark of death, that mark of man, that mark of mortality always existed. It wasn't just it wasn't just in Revelation. The mark of mortal man always existed. It was always a thing, whether it was on your forehead or in your hands or not. It's your actions that comes from your thoughts in the first place. It's the reflection of what Yah tells you to do. He says to keep the word what? In your forehead and in your hands, right? It's a complete reflection, and it's a complete reflection, or it's the same thing for darkness and evil. If it's evil on your mind and wickedness in your hearts and your mind, then what? Your hand is going to do the same thing. Am I saying that you're not that the whole mark of the beast thing is it's you're not going to have to, you know, the whole buy and sell thing isn't going to exist? No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that before it's greater. It's greater than that. It's not. It didn't just happen to exist then. It didn't just happen to exist then. It always existed because there's nothing new under the sun. I just wanted to share with you what was shared with me. In closing, 2 Peter 3:8. It says, but behold, it says, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with Yah as 1,000 years. One day with Yah is 1,000 years as one day, right? How old was Adam before he died? 930 years. 930 years. So Abba told, now go to that Genesis 2:17, Kiefer. In Genesis 2:17, it says that, in Genesis 2:17, it says, but of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, if thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. He says, in the day that thou shalt surely die if you eat from that tree. Well, and Peter says that one day with Yah is as 1,000 years, and as 1,000 years is as one day. So did Abba's word actually fall void? You see, Adam lived 970 years, which is almost 930 years. I apologize. Which is, he was 70 years short of 1,000 years. So if we was to lean towards, if Peter is 100% right, that means that Adam died in that same day. Adam did not complete a day with Yah. So maybe Abba Yah's word did not fall void, because he surely did die that day. I'm just throwing it out there just to play along with y'all. The other sign that goes is how many years short was he? You see, he was 70 years short. What is the number 7? What does the number 7 represent? Completeness. You see, if this is all correct, what Peter is saying, this is a sign that because of Adam's actions, Adam fell short of completion because of his disobedience. I would encourage you all to let's not fall short. Let's continue to keep up the good fight. Now, I know a lot of you know how I usually do my messages and whatnot. And y'all be like, well, Pakad Yahoo, you've been talking about all this death and this, that, and the third. Well, what is the remedy? Well, what is Yah's plan? How does Yah deal with this? You see, Yah has a plan to battle this death and darkness. And that's going to be in the second part of the lesson. The second part of the lesson is titled Preservation.
Yeah, blessings on blessings, yeah. Blessings on blessings, yeah. Blessings on blessings, yeah. Yeah, he blessed me, I was lost, but now I'm found. He picks me up and dusts me off when I have fallen to the ground. It makes me speechless, I can't talk, no, I can't even make a sound. Giving praises to his name, no, I don't care who is around. He's all around me, even gave me sight to see, gave me the brain to comprehend, gave me the eyes so I could read all these things for you.